Welcome to the channel. If epic sci-fi stories are your thing, you've just found your new home. Subscribe, like, and share the adventure. The plasma cannons fell silent first. Across the galactic defense grid, every weapon system that had hummed with lethal energy for 3 centuries suddenly went dark. Admiral Cray of the Vorthan Imperial Fleet stared at his command console in disbelief as red warning lights cascaded across the holographic display. Behind him, his tactical officers frantically tapped at their interfaces, their scaled fingers dancing over controls that no longer responded. "Report!" Cray's voice cracked through the bridge's sudden silence. "Sir, all weapons platforms are offline," Lieutenant Vale stammered, his 4 eyes wide with panic. The pulse cannons, the ion disruptors, even the basic projectile systems, everything's dead. Similar scenes played out across 1,000 ships in the sector. The Nexari battlecruisers, their crystal matrix weapons renowned for their precision, found themselves floating helplessly in space. The Corvan swarm fighters, notorious for their overwhelming firepower, were now nothing more than expensive metal shells. Even the ancient Threnody dreadnoughts, whose weapons had been feared for millennia, had become harmless monuments to their former glory. But it wasn't just the military. On mining stations, asteroid belts, and industrial worlds, every tool designed to cut, drill, or destroy had ceased functioning. The galaxy had been rendered effectively toothless in the span of a single heartbeat, and at the center of it all, completely unaware of the chaos they had caused, sat a human transport vessel called the Wanderer. Captain Maya Shenno. That name was too complex. Captain Maya stood at the observation deck of her small cargo ship, completely oblivious to the fact that her mere presence had just shifted the balance of power in the galaxy. She was examining a piece of equipment she'd never seen before, a strange crystalline device that one of her passengers had been carrying. The passenger, a tall, elegant being with silver skin and no discernible features where a face should be, called itself Echo. It had boarded at the remote trading post of Kepler 7, paying triple the standard fare for discreet passage to the neutral zone. Maya had learned long ago not to ask too many questions about her passenger's business. But something about Echo felt different, important. "Your species fascinates me," Echo said, its voice seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Do you know what makes humans unique among all the sentient races?" Maya shrugged, still turning the crystal device over in her hands. "We're stubborn, adaptable. We survive things that should kill us." "Close," Echo replied, and Maya thought she detected something like amusement in its tone. "You're the only species that truly understands the concept of mercy." Before Maya could ask what that meant, she blinked. It was nothing more than a reflexive action, the kind of thing any biological creature does thousands of times per day without thought. But as her eyelids closed and opened in that fraction of a second, something extraordinary happened. The crystal in her hands pulsed with a warm golden light, and somewhere in the quantum foam that connected all things, a signal propagated faster than light itself. Every great bond starts with a single moment of courage. HFY Chronicle Stories is just beginning, and your support matters. If you love emotional sci-fi tales, forbidden connections, and stories that stay with you, hit subscribe. It's free, and it helps us bring more stories from the stars to you. Maya felt a strange tingling sensation, as if she'd just touched something sacred. The crystal grew warm in her palms, and for a moment, she could have sworn she heard the sound of distant music, a harmony that seemed to encompass the entire universe. "What just happened?" she asked, looking up at Echo. But Echo was already moving toward the ship's communication array, its movements more urgent than before. "Captain Maya, I need you to listen very carefully. What you just did, that simple, unconscious action, has just changed everything. The weapon systems of every species in this galaxy have been rendered inert. Every tool of war, every instrument of destruction, is now useless. Maya's face went pale. That's impossible. You just blinked, Echo interrupted. And in that blink, you triggered something that has been dormant for eons. The galaxy's greatest weapons have been neutralized, but more importantly, you've just proven that humanity possesses something far more powerful than any weapon ever created. Through the viewport, Maya could see the running lights of dozens of ships in the distance, ships that were now broadcasting emergency signals, their crews undoubtedly discovering the same thing that was happening throughout the galaxy. The age of military might was over, and a new era was about to begin, and it had all started with a human's blink. The Emergency Council convened within hours of the Great Silence, as historians would later call it. Representatives from every major species in the galaxy gathered in the Neutral Zone's diplomatic station, their faces bearing expressions of confusion, fear, and barely contained panic. Chancellor Vex of the Threnody Empire, his forearms gesticulating, wildly was the first to speak. This is an act of war. Someone has deployed a weapon that has crippled our entire defense grid. Impossible, countered High Marshal Kine of the Nexari Collective, her crystalline features reflecting the conference room's lights. Our analysis shows no energy signatures, no residual traces of any known weapon technology. This was something else entirely. Admiral Cray, having rushed to the station from his disabled fleet, slammed his fist on the table. Then explained to me how every weapon in my armada simply stopped working at exactly the same moment. Explain how mining equipment across 17 sectors went dark simultaneously. The room erupted in arguments as each species accused the others of conspiracy. The Coven delegation buzzed angrily among themselves, their insectoid forms clicking and chittering. The gas giant dwellers of the Titan Nebula fluctuated between different atmospheric compositions, a sure sign of agitation. Only one representative remained calm, Ambassador Soren of the Galactic Mediation Council. The ancient being whose species had served as peacekeepers for over 2,000 years, raised a translucent hand for silence. My friends, Soren said, his voice carrying the weight of millennia, we are focusing on the wrong question. Instead of asking who did this, we should be asking why every weapon stopped working except for one ship's systems. The room fell silent. Soren activated a holographic display showing the galaxy's defense grid, with billions of red dots representing disabled weapons. At the center of the display, a single green dot pulsed steadily. The human vessel Wanderer, Soren continued, is currently the only ship in the galaxy with functioning defensive systems. Their weapons work. Their tools operate normally. They are, as far as we can determine, completely unaffected by whatever has happened. Meanwhile, aboard the Wanderer, Maya was having the most surreal conversation of her life. Echo had explained that the crystal device was something called a resonance key, a relic from an ancient civilization that had once dominated the galaxy before mysteriously vanishing. The predecessors, Echo explained, were a species that valued peace above all else. They built safeguards into the very fabric of spacetime itself, designed to activate only when certain conditions were met. What conditions? Maya asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. The presence of a species capable of true compassion. A species that had developed the concept of mercy not as weakness, but as strength. The predecessors left these keys scattered throughout the galaxy, waiting for such a species to emerge. Maya stared at the crystal, which continued to pulse with that warm golden light. So you're saying that humans are the first species to develop mercy, not develop? Echo corrected. Understand. Every species has the capacity for mercy, but most see it as a flaw to be overcome. Humans are unique in that you've weaponized compassion itself. You've turned mercy into a tool of survival. The communication array crackled to life, filled with dozens of urgent messages from across the galaxy. Military commanders demanding explanations, trading guilds reporting massive supply chain disruptions, And emergency services struggling to maintain order without their usual tools. Maya watched. The messages scroll past, each one a testament to how much the galaxy relied on the threat of violence to maintain stability. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now," Echo replied, "you have a choice. The resonance key has bonded with you. You can reverse what happened, restore the weapons, and return things to the way they were. Or you can do what no species in galactic history has ever done. You can prove that strength doesn't come from the ability to destroy, but from the wisdom to know when not to." Maya felt the weight of the entire galaxy settling on her shoulders. Every war, every conflict, every act of aggression, all of it had suddenly become her responsibility. The crystal pulsed in her hands, and she realized that her next decision would determine not just the fate of humanity, but the destiny of every living being in the galaxy. Outside, the first diplomatic vessels were already moving to intercept the Wanderer. Soon, she would be facing representatives from every major power, each one demanding that she restore their weapons and return the galaxy to its familiar state of armed tension. But Maya was beginning to understand that there might be another way. A better way, the human way. The delegation ship surrounded the Wanderer like a pack of circling predators, their weapon systems still dark and useless. Maya stood in her small cargo bay, now converted into an impromptu diplomatic meeting space, facing representatives from 12 different species. The tension in the room was palpable, despite the fact that none of them could actually threaten her. "Captain Maya," Chancellor Vex began, his voice carefully controlled, "we need you to understand the gravity of the situation. Without our defensive capabilities, the galaxy is vulnerable to countless threats. Pirate raids, asteroid impacts, stellar phenomena. The Void Hunters," interrupted Admiral Cray, his scales darkening with fear. "They've been quiet for decades, but if they learn of our weakness—" Maya listened as each representative outlined the catastrophes that would surely follow. The Coven delegate painted pictures of their hive worlds being overrun by spacefaring predators. The Nexuri spoke of their crystal cities being shattered by meteor strikes they could no longer deflect. The Threnody warned of ancient enemies who would emerge from the galactic rim to exact revenge for past defeats. "You're all assuming," Maya said quietly, "that the solution to these problems requires weapons." The room fell silent. "Hi, Marshal." Kine's crystalline features shifted through several colors before settling on a deep purple confusion mixed with disbelief. "Captain," Ambassador Soren said gently, "what alternative do you propose? How does one stop a Void Hunter assault fleet without weapons?" Maya looked down at the resonance key, which had remained warm in her palm throughout the entire meeting. "Echo, tell them about the predecessors." Echo materialized beside her, its form shimmering with that same golden light as the crystal. The assembled delegates recoiled, several reaching for weapons that no longer functioned. "The predecessors," Echo began, "were not a peaceful species because they were weak. They were peaceful because they were strong enough to be merciful. When they encountered the first Void Hunter incursion, they did not destroy the attackers. They transformed them. Transformed them how?" Chancellor Vex demanded. "They showed them a better way to exist. The Void Hunters, like all predator species, attacked because they believed it was the only way to survive. The predecessors proved them wrong. They taught them to thrive through cooperation instead of conquest." Admiral Cray's laugh was bitter. "Fairy tales. You're asking us to bet the survival of our species on bedtime stories." "Not stories," Maya said, stepping forward. "Proof." She held up the resonance key. "This crystal doesn't just disable weapons. It connects minds. It lets species understand each other in ways that words never could." She demonstrated by pressing the crystal to her forehead. Immediately, the emotions and thoughts of everyone in the room flooded through her, not as an invasion, but as a sharing. She felt Chancellor Vex's genuine fear for his people, Admiral Cray's desperate need to protect his fleet, High Marshal Kyne's confusion about her entire worldview being challenged. "I can feel what you're all feeling," Maya said softly. "Your fear, your anger, your desperate need to protect what you love. But I can also feel something else, Hope. Deep down, you're all tired of the constant threat of war. You're exhausted by the need to always be ready to fight." One by one, she offered the crystal to each delegate. Some refused, but others accepted, and as they did, something remarkable happened. The Coven delegate, after experiencing the crystal's effect, began to vibrate in the harmonic frequency that indicated deep contemplation among his species. "The Unity Song," he whispered. "I can hear it. For the first time in generations, I can hear the Unity Song that connects all living things." The Nexari High Marshal's features shifted to a brilliant white, the color of revelation among her people. The resonance. "It's not just connecting our minds. It's connecting us to something larger," Maya nodded. "The predecessors didn't disappear. They evolved. They became part of the quantum field that connects all consciousness. They're still here, still watching, still hoping that someday other species would learn what they learned." "Which is?" Ambassador Soren asked, though his ancient eyes suggested he already knew. "That true strength isn't the ability to destroy your enemies," Maya said. "It's the ability to turn your enemies into friends." The meeting continued for hours as Maya demonstrated the crystal's power, allowing each delegate to experience the thoughts and emotions of their supposed enemies. Slowly, tentatively, they began to understand that the conflicts which had raged for centuries were based on misunderstandings, on fear, on the assumption that violence was the only solution to scarcity and difference. But even as minds began to change, Maya knew the real test was yet to come. Somewhere in the void between galaxies, ancient sensors were detecting the sudden silence of 1 billion weapons. The Void Hunters, dormant for decades, were beginning to stir. And they were hungry. The Void Hunters arrived 3 days later, their massive bioships emerging from the dark space between galaxies like nightmares given form. They were creatures of pure hunger, evolved in the cosmic void where resources were scarce, and survival meant consuming everything in their path. Maya stood on the bridge of the Wanderer, watching the sensor readings as the first scout ships entered the galaxy's outer rim. Each Void Hunter vessel was a living thing, grown rather than built, with weapons that were extensions of their bodies rather than separate systems. "They're not affected by the resonance key," Echo observed, its form flickering with concern. "The weapon disable field only works on artificial systems. These creatures are their own weapons." The emergency council had reconvened aboard the diplomatic station, but now their fear had a specific target. The Void Hunters were known throughout galactic history as the ultimate predators, a species that had consumed entire star systems before, disappearing into the void to digest their prey. "We need our weapons back," Admiral Cray demanded, his scales now a deep black with terror. "Immediately." "The Void Hunters will sense our weakness," Chancellor Vex added. "They'll come for us all." Maya felt the weight of their fear, but also something else, a growing understanding that had been building since the first delegation meeting. The resonance key hadn't just disabled weapons. It had been teaching her something about the nature of conflict itself. "What if we don't fight them?" she asked quietly. The room erupted in shouts of disbelief and anger. Only Ambassador Soren remained calm, his ancient eyes studying Maya with something that might have been admiration. "Captain," he said softly, "what are you proposing?" Maya held up the resonance key, which was now glowing brighter than ever before. "The predecessors left us a message. Not just in this crystal, but in what happened when I blinked. They're showing us that every species has a choice: evolve or stagnate, fight or transcend." She activated the holographic display, showing the approaching Void Hunter fleet. "Look at them. Really look at them. They're not evil. They're hungry. They're afraid. They're doing what they think they have to do to survive. They're monsters, High Marshal Kine protested. They've destroyed countless civilizations. Because no one ever tried to understand them, Maya replied. No one ever tried to show them a different way. She turned to address the entire council. I'm going to meet them, alone. I'm going to use the resonance key to communicate with them, to show them what the predecessors showed us, that there's another way to exist. You'll be killed, Admiral Cray said flatly. Maybe, Maya admitted, but if I don't try, we'll all be killed anyway. The difference is, my way offers hope. The debate that followed was fierce, but in the end, the decision was Maya's to make. She was the only one who could use the resonance key, the only one who could potentially communicate with the Void Hunters. As she prepared to depart, Echo appeared beside her one final time. Are you sure about this? It asked. Maya looked out at the stars, thinking about humanity's long journey from a small blue planet to the stars. We've always been explorers, she said. We've always been the ones willing to step into the unknown. This is just another frontier. The most dangerous frontier, Echo pointed out. The most important one, Maya corrected. She climbed into the Wanderer's small shuttle, the resonance key secure in her palm. As she launched from the cargo bay, she could see the massive diplomatic station falling away behind her, filled with representatives from species that had been at war for centuries, but were now united in their hope that one human might succeed. Where entire fleets had failed, the Void Hunter fleet was still hours away, but Maya could already feel their presence through the resonance key, a vast, hungry consciousness that had known nothing but emptiness and need for millennia. They were coming to devour the galaxy, not out of malice, but out of desperation. Maya set course for the lead bioship, the crystal growing warmer in her hand with each passing moment. She was about to attempt something that had never been tried before, communicating with a species that had been the galaxy's nightmare for thousands of years. She was about to discover whether mercy was truly humanity's greatest weapon. The Void Hunter flagship was a mountain of living flesh and bone, its surface pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that spoke of ancient hunger. Maya's shuttle approached slowly, the resonance key now burning with such intensity that she could barely hold it. As she drew closer, she began to understand what she was seeing. The Void Hunters weren't just predators, they were the last survivors of a dead galaxy, refugees who had fled the cosmic void when their own star systems had been consumed by entropy itself. They're not monsters, she whispered to herself, finally understanding. They're orphans. The shuttle's hull began to vibrate as the bioship's senses focused on her. She could feel the alien consciousness probing her mind, trying to understand what she was. The resonance key flared, and suddenly Maya was no longer alone in her thoughts. Small thing, came the voice, vast and ancient and filled with eons of pain. You taste of warmth. We have forgotten warmth. Maya pressed the crystal to her forehead, opening her mind completely. I know you're hungry, she said aloud, knowing the creature could hear her thoughts. I know you're afraid. But there's another way. Images flooded her consciousness, the Void Hunters' memories of their home galaxy dying, stars going dark one by one, the terrible journey through the cosmic void in search of something, anything, that could sustain them. They had become predators because they had forgotten how to be anything else. We consume because we must, the voice continued. There is nitrogen monoxide other way. Yes, there is, Maya replied, and she shared her own memories, Earth's blue oceans, the sun rising over distant mountains, the feeling of rain on her face. But more than that, she shared the concept that had made humanity unique, the idea that strength came not from taking, but from giving. Impossible, the creature responded, but Maya could feel its certainty wavering. The predecessors learned this. Maya continued. They evolved beyond the need to consume. They became part of the quantum field that connects all life. They're still here, still creating, still nurturing new life across the galaxy. She showed the Void Hunter the crystal's true nature, not just a weapon disabler, but a key to understanding the fundamental connection between all living things. The golden light that pulsed through it was the same energy that bound atoms together, that sparked consciousness in biological brains, that allowed love to exist between beings separated by vast distances. "Show us," the voice whispered, and Maya felt the creature's massive intellect opening to her like a flower to sunlight. What followed was the most profound sharing of consciousness ever recorded in galactic history. Maya, channeling the resonance key's power, connected not just with the flagship's commander, but with the entire Void Hunter fleet. She showed them what the predecessors had discovered, that the universe was not a place of scarcity, but of infinite abundance. The energy that connected all things was inexhaustible, renewable, and freely shared. The Void Hunters had been trying to fill an emptiness that could only be filled by connection, by understanding, by the simple act of recognizing that they were not alone in the universe. "Understand," came the voice, now filled with wonder instead of hunger. "We have been sleeping, we have been dead, but this warmth, this light, it makes us remember." Maya felt the change rippling through the fleet as the Void Hunters began to transform. Their bioships, which had been weapons of consumption, began to reshape themselves into something new, vessels of creation, capable of nurturing life instead of destroying it. When Maya finally returned to the diplomatic station, she brought with her representatives of the Void Hunters, no longer predators but partners in the galaxy's new future. The assembled council watched in amazement as the former nightmare creatures shared their knowledge of the cosmic void, their understanding of deep space, their ability to travel between galaxies. "The predecessors were right," Maya said, addressing the full council. "True strength isn't the ability to destroy. It's the ability to create, to nurture, to turn enemies into friends." The resonance key in her hand pulsed one final time, then crumbled to dust. Its purpose had been fulfilled, but the connection it had created between species, between minds, between former enemies would last forever. Years later, historians would mark this as the moment when the galaxy entered its golden age. The Void Hunters became the galaxy's greatest explorers, their bioships carrying seeds of life to distant star systems. The military fleets were converted into rescue vessels, their crews now dedicated to helping rather than harming. And at the center of it all was a simple truth that humanity had always known but had never been able to share, that mercy was not weakness but the greatest strength of all. The age of weapons was over. The age of compassion had begun, all because a human had blinked.